Hi and welcome back to my channel. My name is Sarah and today I wanted to talk to you about my library and all of my library loans and the books I have reserved. I really enjoy when people do these sort of library check-in videos. I find it really interesting to hear what books people have out from their library and what they're planning to read. So I thought I'd do one of these. This is like the first time in a while that I actually have quite a lot of books reserved because when you go onto the library website, you can filter by new in. And my library's quite small. They don't have like a lot of books in their catalogue, so normally I can flip through all of those books pretty quickly. And there were loads of good new books in, so I reserved, I think I have 10 reservations at the moment, which is the most I've had for a really long time. So yeah, I live in the Scottish Highlands, so there's one library service for the whole of the Highlands, which is probably about a third of the geographical size of Scotland, which you'd think that they would have a really good selection of books, but it's very sparsely populated. A lot of the people that live here are a bit older. They're sort of like, it's a place you move to when you retire. So there are a lot of books that appeal to older readers. There's a lot of like cozy crime type stuff, romances. There's also a lot of books about Scotland. Yeah, I think like a lot of tourists come here. A lot of people that move here aren't Scottish, so they want to read things set in Scotland. That doesn't really interest me particularly. Like, I've lived in Scotland more or less all of my life, so I don't have any huge desire to read loads of books about Scotland. The other thing about my library is they're very slow at getting the books to you, and that is not their fault. As I say, it's a very large geographical area, so sometimes if I'm reserving a book, it's like a 4-hour drive away from where I live. And when I was in the library one day, the librarian was saying that they had one of their only driver, I think, off sick for a week, and then he was on holiday for a week, so there were going to be no books delivered in the next 2 weeks. So yeah, it's a slow process. I would say on average, when a book is available and I reserve it, it takes 3 weeks to get to me. And then once the book arrives on the hold shelf in your local library, you have 3 weeks to pick it up, which is good if you're busy, but it seems excessive because if I'm like second in line for a book, you have to factor in a 3-week period for the book to be transferred to the person before you in the line, and then 3 weeks for them to pick it up, and then at least a 3-week loan. It seems like even if someone else has requested a book, you can renew the loan, which is, I mean, that didn't happen in my last library. So you're talking about 2 months on average for each person in the queue before you. So some of these books I'm like third in line, so we could be talking 6 months before I get them realistically. You know, I'm not complaining, that's just not what I was used to before. I lived in a city before. It seemed like books were delivered daily. You could request a book and it would be with you within a week max, sometimes the next day. I am very grateful for my library. I use it a lot. All of the librarians know me by name. The library is also like part of the same building as the gym, so if I go to the gym I have to walk through the library. So sometimes if I'm trying not to collect a book because I'm not ready to read it yet, they'll see me and they'll be like, "Oh Sarah, we have a book for you." So yeah, it is a very good library, it's just a bit slow. So I just wanted to talk you through all the books that I have out just now and yeah, what I have reserved. This is more of like a longer term TBR, and that's also the problem. Is like what I really liked about the library when I lived in Edinburgh is that you could like have just a notion that you wanted to read something and you could just go and get it like that day or the next day or within a week. Here it's like, maybe now I think I'm interested in reading this book, but when it arrives in 6 months' time, will I still be interested? And then I feel a pressure that I have to read it within the like 3-week period because I've waited all this time for it, even if I'm not in the mood for it. So yeah, that is a bit of a problem. But yeah, I'll talk you through all of the books that I have out on loan and the ones that I've reserved. And yeah, so I currently have 7 books out on loan and I've read 3 of them. I talked about these in my June wrap up, but I'll just quickly mention them again. So the first one is The Trees by Percival Everett. I really enjoyed this one. This was shortlisted for the Booker Prize in 2022. A lot of people read it then. It's a crime book set in the deep south of the US that talks about the legacy of slavery, racial politics, lynchings. It's very dark, but I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed what it was saying. I don't really read any crime, so this was a bit different for me. So for that reason, it's not like one of my top reads, but really enjoyed it. Then I read Moon Tiger by Penelope Lively. This book won the Booker Prize in the 80s, and it sort of is a woman on her deathbed reflecting back on her whole life. I really enjoyed this one. This was one of my favourite books from June. I really like books that are told in a non-linear fashion when it's looking back at someone's life, and this really picks out the snippets of her life that still resonate with her, that she's thinking about in her deathbed. So it was really interesting from that point of view. She's not the most likeable character. It also takes you through her time during World War II. She was a reporter in Egypt, so that was really interesting. It talks about her relationship with her brother, and yeah, I would really recommend this one. It's a nice short one as well. It's about 250 pages. And then I also read Selected Poems by Sylvia Plath. I had never read any of Plath's poetry before, so yeah, I would recommend this one. It's a good place to start. It has quite a selection of poems. These were selected by Ted Hughes after Sylvia Plath's death. So yeah, I would really recommend this one too. So the next one that I have is The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. This was on my summer TBR. I never read any Tolkien. I've never even watched any of the Lord of the Rings films, which is a bit crazy. So I wanted to pick this one up first, but then somebody commented saying that I probably wouldn't like it because it sort of reads as a children's book. So then I'm thinking maybe I'd be better reading The Lord of the Rings and going back to The Hobbit after, like if I enjoy it, because maybe it's not best to start with a sort of standalone book that reads more children-y, but I think I'll still give it a go because I have it out of the library now. It's not too long, so yeah, I'm going to give this one a go. And then I took some books out because I was going to do a reading vlog of reading some of the books that Emma from the channel Emmy had rated 5 stars. She did a video like a couple of months ago where she went through every single book that she'd ever rated 5 stars, and I hadn't actually read that many of them, and I was intrigued. So I saw that my library had some, but since then I've kind of, not that I've lost interest in the idea, it's just that I was in a little bit of a reading slump and I wasn't sure if I was going to love either of these books, so I've not picked them up yet, but I think I can renew them, so I may still read these quite soon. And the first one is Canticles for Leibowitz by Walter M. Miller Jr. This is sort of a classic sci-fi. It was written in the 1950s, and this is about a group of monks in the US that follow this Saint Leibowitz. He's sort of their figurehead of their church, and it's a post-apocalyptic situation. You're meant to think, some sort of nuclear war that has more or less ended civilization, and they've rebuilt it. And this main character finds a notebook in a fallout shelter when he's out in the desert that has a note from St. Leibowitz in it, and the note says, "Pound pastrami, canned kraut, 6 bagels, bring home for Emma." And he is very confused by this. They sort of have changed the language they speak, so this is written in very old English for him. And yeah, he's trying to figure out what this means. Is this a message from their saint? So I think it's going to be really interesting. I don't really read much sort of sci-fi post-apocalyptic type stuff, but yeah, I did really enjoy what I read of it. I just then put it back down. And then lastly, this is one of the reasons why I've not made that video, because I'm really scared of this book, and that's House of Leaves by Mark Z. Danielewski. This is horror. I don't read any horror, and like when Emma was talking about it in the video, she said this was the most terrifying book she's ever read, which made me not want to pick it up. It's a really interesting format. Like, I don't know if you can see, but there are lots of like blank pages, lots of strange stuff going on, so I like want to read it, but I'm a bit terrified. I am the biggest scaredy cat with this sort of thing. I like don't watch anything scary, read anything scary. The second I do it, I can't sleep. So I'm like really nervous about this one, but I do not have it from the library, so I might read it. I'm just, yeah, we'll see. Then I'll talk you through the books that I have reserved. So there's one that's ready to pick up, and that's My Friends by Hisham Matar. I don't really know very much about this book. Bob over at Bob the Booker was making a video of Booker Prize predictions, and this was on his list, and it sounds really interesting. It seems like it's quite a political book. I think it deals with students and joining political organisations, and then I think it follows on from there. I really don't know much about this. I've wanted to read Hisham Matar for ages. There was a book when I lived in Edinburgh that I kept trying to reserve from the library, but the person before me had just never returned it. It was like a month in Siena, and I think it was him talking about art and life in Siena. So this sounds very different, but yeah, he's been an author that I've wanted to read for so long. Whenever I see a sort of new release that I'm semi-interested in, I just reserve it from my library because they don't really have very many of them. And it's a very good way to not have to buy a hardback book. Then I have Brotherless Night by V.V. Gaganashenthenam. This book is in transit. This won the Women's Prize, so I was interested in picking it up, and yeah, they had it and it was available, so that was good. So then the other day I realised that you could filter by publisher on my library app, so I did that. So I looked up New York Review of Books editions because I didn't think they'd have many, and they didn't. They had like 3 in total, so I reserved 2 of them just because I never heard of this book and they don't really have any like more unusual stuff. So as soon as I saw this, I was like, I'm just going to reserve this and see how it is. And that's Henri Duchemin and His Shadows by Emmanuel Bove. This is translated from the French. I don't know anything about this book or author really. I did sort of read, I went onto Goodreads and read the synopsis, but it wasn't really giving very much away. I think this is set in Paris. I think it follows a man just sort of going about his daily life, but that is the extent I know about it. I like New York Review of Books as a publisher, so I just thought I'd try it. And the other one that's in transit is The Radetzky March by Joseph Roth. This is a classic. I also found this by filtering by publisher. This is an Everyman Library edition. They don't really have many of these either, so when I saw this one, I was like, it's a book that I've been like sort of interested in for a while. I think this is quite a quiet story about a family in the Austro-Hungarian Empire. So yeah, I'm like interested to see if I get on with Joseph Roth's writing. He's not an author that I've tried before. So yeah, I'll give that a go. A couple that I'm first in line for, so it might be a little while longer before I get to them, are The Details by Grenberg. This was shortlisted for the International Booker, and Jack Edwards did a video where he was talking about some of the best books he'd read this year, and this was on it, and it sounded really interesting. It seems like it's sort of delved into just the small details of certain situations, so I'm intrigued. I think it's quite short. I'll give it a go. The other one, this is the other NYRB edition that they had, is My Death by Lisa Tuttle. I've heard loads of people speaking about this. I've heard Cass over at Cass Krug speaking about it, and also Sophie from Bibliosophie. They both really enjoyed it. Like Cass especially said it was a very like off the wall crazy book, so I'm interested. It's also very short. And then I also reserved A Shining by Jon Fosse. I probably shouldn't have reserved this one, but my thinking, hear me out, is that I own Eyes Another, which is the second volume of his septology. I read the first one a couple of years ago and then instantly bought the second one and just didn't read it. This year I'm trying to read all of the books that I owned from before the start of the year, so I will get to Eyes Another, but A Shining is a standalone book, and I just thought that if I really like A Shining, then it's going to make me more motivated to pick up Eyes Another, because at the moment, like, I don't really want to continue that series, not because I didn't enjoy it, it was just very dark and intense. So I kind of want to just pick up one that I can enjoy on its own, and then I'll go back to the series, because realistically I'm going to have to like look up what happened in the first one to try and remember before I read the second one, so I kind of just want an easy standalone book first. And then there are 2 books that I'm second in the queue for, so these could take a while to get to me. The first one is Question 7 by Richard Flanagan. My dad was talking about this, and I'd seen it in bookshops, but I hadn't really thought much of it, and my dad was saying like, this book is getting incredible reviews, and I was like, because I know that he won the Booker Prize for his previous book, which is like The Road to the North. I don't think that's right, but it's something like that. And this one is, I think, a sort of memoir. But yeah, I don't really know very much about it, but when I looked it up on Goodreads, it was getting incredible reviews. It's getting like 4.23 or something, which is really high. And yeah, I'm just intrigued. I didn't read his previous book, but he obviously is a well-respected author if he won the Booker. And yeah, I do like a memoir. So I'm very interested. And the other one is It Lasts Forever, and then it's Over by Anne de Marken. This, again, I filtered by publisher, and this is a Fitzcarraldo one. The same with The Shining. They only had like 4 Fitzcarraldos, and the other 2 I had read. This I heard Leah over at Lover of Pages talking about and absolutely raving about. This is her favourite book of the year, and it just sounds really interesting. Again, I think this is sort of post-apocalyptic, and someone looking back on their life. That might not be right. I don't really know very much about it, but the way she talked about it just made me really want to pick it up, and I was so surprised when they had this one. So yes, that's maybe getting to be sometime in the future. And then the last one is Kairos by Jenny Erpenbeck. I'm third in queue for this, so this could be a long one. This won the International Booker. I've like heard very mixed reviews, and I just don't really want to look it up because I don't know too much about it. I heard a lot of people be like, what, this is the best book in translation? Which is, I guess, a little bit off-putting, but I want to give it a try, see how I got on with it. That's a great thing about the library. Like, I can take a chance on any of these books. I'm not investing any money, and if they don't work out, like, I just take them back. I always feel a little bit guilty when I buy a book and don't like it, because even though I donate it to charity, I just feel like maybe it won't find a good home, whereas this, I just take it back to the library. So yeah, those are all the books that I either have out or I'm going to take out of the library in the next 6 months. I'm sure I'll continue to reserve more library books. I do sort of check all of their new books once a month. But yeah, if you've read any of these and really liked them, please do let me know. I'm quite excited about most of them. So yes, I'm sure you'll hear my thoughts on them shortly.